Jiu-jitsu technique is more important than strength. This is pretty clear, and I 100% agree with this. Just because technique is important, that doesn't mean that physical attributes of the athlete, like strength, aren't important. Even John Danaher said that all things being equal, meaning technique, the stronger person will always win. But the one thing that jiu-jitsu players always leave out when it comes to strength being important for jiu-jitsu is the conversation about the protective value that strength and conditioning plays in preventing injury. And when you are injured, the injuries are less severe if you have a solid foundation of strength and strength training underneath you. What does the evidence say? A recent study showed that by incorporating strength training specifically into an athlete's programming, saw the athletes decrease their risk of injury, as well as decrease the severity of the injury when they did occur compared to control groups. These control groups included protocols such as static stretching. We've now established that strength training is important for jiu-jitsu. Does this mean that all jiu-jitsu athletes should be powerlifters? Absolutely not. Not all strength training is going to be relevant to all sports. For example, the strength and conditioning program of a cyclist would be different to that of a boxer. There are, of course, some crossovers and some universal truths, but let's drill down on some jiu-jitsu specifics and talk about the different types of strength that are relevant to jiu-jitsu. The 4 key types of strength are maximal strength, explosive strength, isometric strength, and strength endurance. I'm going to talk about each of the different types of strength, tell you what it is, how it applies to jiu-jitsu, and then how to train for it. Maximal strength. The maximal strength of a group of muscles is the maximal amount of resistance that an athlete can overcome with that group of muscles. Training specifically for 1 rep max is not going to be the best use of your time. When we think maximal strength training, we generally think of powerlifting. The problem with powerlifting alone for jiu-jitsu is it doesn't address things like strength endurance, isometric strength, and the full expression and the full range of motion of your body through different movements and the expression of your joints required for jiu-jitsu. But in saying all that though, having greater maximal strength will also support other areas of your strength development that relate directly to jiu-jitsu. Training your maximal strength can be done by lifting heavy. Lifting low rep ranges and moving heavy things, picking them up, putting them down. Anything around that 5 rep range or even lower will do the trick. A popular maximal strength training protocol is selecting compound exercises like squats, deadlifts, chest press, overhead press, and following the 5x5 method or the 5-3-1 method. The 5x5 method is selecting an exercise and doing 5 sets of 5 reps. The 5-3-1 method, as you can probably tell, is selecting an exercise and doing 3 sets of 5 reps, then 3 reps, followed by your 1 rep max for that exercise for that day. Explosive strength. Explosive strength is different from maximal strength because it includes the element of speed. It's your ability to move heavy resistance quickly. Think about a powerlifter grinding out a world record deadlift. They're not really moving the weight all that quickly. They're not utilizing a whole lot of explosive strength, but it is an example of maximal strength. Explosive bursts of strength output, anywhere from 5 to 15 seconds of maximal effort, can be the difference between you being able to finish a takedown, pass someone's guard, or finish that submission. Explosive strength and power, in my opinion, is probably more important than maximal strength when it relates to BJJ, as it is more of a real world application to our sport. One way you can train explosive strength is through lifting compound movements, but as the name implies, doing it explosively. So when you're doing your pull day, for example, maybe you've selected the primary exercise or the primary lift for that day as deadlifts. Instead of simply loading up the bar and grinding out your reps, try with intention to get the bar off the floor as quick as you can, safely of course. You can use this lifting tempo on pretty much every lift that you do in the gym. This will greatly enhance your ability to train explosive strength. Different examples of explosive strength training are speed deadlifts, different variations of slams. You can use even explosive plyometrics like box jumps as well. Isometric strength. Isometric exercises are tightening of specific muscle groups. During isometric training, the muscle doesn't necessarily change length and the affected joint doesn't necessarily move. Another way to think of isometric training is essentially any exercise where you don't have to move through a range of motion. Think of things like holds. Isometric strength training is one of the most important forms of strength training for jiu-jitsu athletes. Imagine that you're on top in side control with a heavy cross face. It's your isometric strength and of course your weight control and technique that enables you to hold someone down and hold your opponent down in that position. Training isometric strength is essentially producing force against the resistance that doesn't move. One example to do this is you can jump into a Smith machine, lock off the Smith machine and try with all your might to bench press the locked off bar. Because your joints aren't going through any ranges of motion, that is an example of an isometric. Strength endurance. Strength endurance is oftentimes the most overlooked form of strength for jiu-jitsu athletes. For strength endurance, the aim is to be stronger for longer, or technically speaking, to be able to produce greater than or approximately 30% of your maximal force for a maximum of 2 minutes. That is where the term endurance comes into, strength endurance. The importance of strength endurance in the jiu-jitsu world would pretty much be intuitive to anyone who has rolled before. Think about the dynamics of a jiu-jitsu roll. Unless you're trying to explode past someone's guard or explosively bridge your way out of a bad position, most of your strength is applied consistently at around that 30% of your maximal effort throughout the duration of the roll. And that's sort of like your baseline, if you will. Another example would be if you're trying to hold someone down in a position like hold their back, or you're trying to apply a rear naked choke, but you don't quite have it yet. So you're just trying to hold the person in that position and you're using maybe 30 to 50% of your maximal effort. That's an example of where strength endurance comes into play. There are many different ways to train your strength endurance and there's many different strength endurance exercises. For example, you can use circuit training or simply you can select a higher rep range with lower weight on some of your favorite lifts. An example of that could be lifting maybe deadlifts or another one of your favorite lifts at about 50% your max effort for 20 to 30 reps. How strong do I need to be for jiu-jitsu? As strong as you can be without jeopardizing your health and your jiu-jitsu training. Now, the second part of this is often overlooked. If you can only train 2 to 3 times per week, you should not be replacing one of those jiu-jitsu sessions with a strength and conditioning session just because you think that you have to. The whole point of strength training for jiu-jitsu is to support the jiu-jitsu. Don't lose sight of that goal. At the end of the day, the whole point of all of this and even this video is for you to be able to enjoy the sport, your chosen sport, the sport that you love, jiu-jitsu, even more. So don't sacrifice your jiu-jitsu for strength training. If, again, you can only make jiu-jitsu twice per week, don't eliminate one of those for strength and conditioning because then you're only training once per week. But if that response has left you unsatisfied and you really just want some numbers or a benchmark to aim for, then Chad Wesley Smith is your man. He's thrown out some metrics out there specifically relating to strength for jiu-jitsu athletes. I don't necessarily entirely agree with his assessment being the end all and be all of the benchmark to aim for jiu-jitsu strength. But regardless, here they are. For males, you should be able to squat 2 times your body weight, bench 1.5 times your body weight, deadlift 2.5 times your body weight. For females, squat 1.7 times your body weight, bench 1 times your body weight, and deadlift 2.25 times your body weight. Whenever Chad talks about these metrics and strength and how strong you need to be for BJJ, he also talks about special strength. That's, in his words, is developed on the mats. And the only way to develop that special strength is through doing more jiu-jitsu. And on this point, Chad and I agree. How often should I train? I recommend training strength and conditioning for jiu-jitsu 2 to 3 times per week on a push-pull legs split, or also known as PPL. A PPL split is a way of structuring your strength training by grouping different exercises together in the categories being pushing movements, pulling movements, and leg day. Pushing movements are those where you're pushing against the resistance or a force. Think of things like push-ups, push press, chest press, shoulder press, and different variations, and it generally targets your chest, shoulders, and triceps. Pulling exercise, on the other hand, are things where you're pulling. Think of deadlift variations, different variations of rows, or the pull up. Legs are pretty self-explanatory. It's essentially a leg day. I recommend focusing on squats and single leg exercises that target your legs, like single leg deadlifts, Bulgarian split squats, and different lunge variations. I also recommend including a core, carry, and rotational exercise at the end of every jiu-jitsu workout that you do. Core exercises are important for core strength, stability, and also couple really well with rotational exercises. Carry exercises are there to train your grip strength and your strength endurance. An example of a carry exercise could be something like a farmer's carry, dead hangs, or plate holds. I know they're not technically carries, but you're essentially training your grip strength, and that's the whole point. Here's an example of a 2-day-a-week exercise program. I've put a link to download this free sample program in the description of this video. It will redirect you to my website where you'll be able to put in your email address and I'll have it sent directly to your inbox. As a bit of a bonus, I'll also include a home workout variation of this program. So if you don't have access to a gym or you just prefer working at home, that will be a really good option for you as well. Thanks for watching this video. If you made it this far, feel free to subscribe and like the video, and let me know in the comments if you have any questions on anything that was covered, or you just want to chime in and let me know your favorite strength training protocols for BJJ, if you agree or disagree with everything that I've covered. Thanks for watching.